Just wondering what it's like to jump up into a air balloon in a box and act within this very confined space in a massive film like this.
Do you know, working in a really small space, the other sort of character in this film, as pretentious as it sounds, is the balloon. And it is this tiny space that Felicity and I were working in. And so we rehearsed. Normally on films you don't get much time to rehearse, but we rehearsed for like 2 months to try and find as much character in the balloon space and almost eccentricity in it as we could. But it was intense.
Felicity did a lot of stunts, but you actually had to go to the hospital. Why was that?
So embarrassing. Basically, Felicity is like hardcore action superhero in this movie. My character is much less so, and in fact, he's just sort of sitting in the basket while she goes and does these formidable things. And then I arrived on set on the penultimate day of shooting, and there was this crash mat, the purpose of which was to stop actors from being stupid and hurting themselves. And I walked on the crash mat and twisted my ankle, and then had to go to ER. But I was dressed in this period outfit with like frostbite and blood all over me, and so I was sort of wheeled into ER. And the poor doctors thought that I was on death's door, and then I've literally just twisted my ankle. It's really not that, but Felicity was like, oh, come on. Yeah, anyway.
It was fantastic. I worked very closely with a stunt woman I worked with on Rogue One called Helen Bailey, and she's just fantastic, and we work very closely so that we can work out as much stuff that I can do myself to get that measure of reality and for it to feel as natural as possible. But yeah, it's such a great opportunity to play such a brilliant kick-ass character.
Eddie and you were sent the script at the same time, and they said that you really talked about it like if you were going to do the movie. How did it go?
Well, we sort of said to each other, I'll do it if you do it. So it was very much a mutual agreement, but they were just two brilliantly written characters that it felt a bit of a no-brainer. And I think we both get on very well, and we have very similar methods of working, and I think we were ready to get back in the boxing ring, so to speak, and push each other.
Well, the thing that resonated with me was this amazing sense of adventure that these early aeronauts had, these early pilots, and the kind of the extreme lengths that they go to expand our knowledge of the world and to see the world differently. And I think there's something about flight or whether that's balloons or aeroplanes or space travel that kind of is always fascinating to humans, and it was always quite an easy thing to pitch because it was just about this journey into the unknown, and I think that's just something that's quite universal and that everyone can understand.
Tom, it seems about 5 minutes since Wild Rose. In fact, I only saw it about a month ago. You obviously brought that to the festival circuit as well. This was obviously off and going then, so how do you balance sort of doing this and making a huge film like The Aeronauts?
It's like high-class problems, really, and it's just weird the way that things happen. Wild Rose was 10 years in the making, and then it happened almost at exactly the same time as Aeronauts, and they went back to back. So it's a sort of luxury that means there's a period of very hard work, but at the same time, to get to make 2 films in quick succession is a real privilege. So.
And what's it like working with Jack? You've obviously worked with Jack for a long time, so what's it like sort of reuniting with him on this and developing this hugely budgeted film with some massive talent in it?
It's pretty special actually, because Jack and I are like old friends. We started out together. We made our first film together. We've worked together. I think it's our 5th collaboration together. And he's, if you love someone and they're your friend, getting to work with each other, there's nothing better. And we really push each other and inspire each other, and that's it's great. Again, it's a great joy. The starting point for me is always how much of it can we do for real, and so the first questions were, well, can we build a 19th century gas balloon? Turns out we could. Can we get the cast up in it? Turns out we could. Can we get insurance for it? Turns out we could. So we did a chunk of it for real. Eddie and Felicity went up in the balloon. It was challenging. We had some accidents, but they're still here, and we made the movie. So. It was good, but then of course there was some stuff that we couldn't do for real. But I think it always, if you've done it for real, then hopefully it helps the stuff that's not real that much better. And it also means that an audience is never quite sure what's real and what's not. And so there's some stuff that's real throughout the film, and there's other stuff that isn't. So,
tell me about the project, how it came about, and what we can expect in the Aeronauts?
It was. So Tom Harper and I have worked together basically since we were children, and his DOP, who I'd also worked with, a guy called George Steele, who's our DOP on this, came to him and said, "I've got an idea for a film about aeronauting," and he told it to me, and I said, "I don't understand how that can be good." And then he kept talking to me about it and kept talking to me about the ideas behind it, and it was like, okay, this is actually something that really happened, that really and was really important as to who we are and how our world works.
And when you get a project like this in your mind and you start to develop it, you obviously do theatre, you do TV and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What it takes, what format it goes on to, what medium? Is it obviously the story, I suppose, itself, and then kind of interested in that.
And how it would work and what it would look like. And but you're always sort of going, that would have been much better as a film. You watch a play and you go, oh no, that was a terrible idea. Or, you watch some telly and you go, oh, if I put that on stage, that could have been amazing. So, no, there's constant regret that you put it in the wrong medium all the time.
I've just seen The Virtues, and that doesn't seem that long ago that I saw that. I'm kind of interested how you sort of balance your life, because you're doing TV, theatre, you're doing this, you've got another big TV series coming up. How do you balance everything? Do you finish one thing and then go on to another, or is it all...
No, I always spin plates. I find it reassuring. I don't sleep at night if I'm just doing one project, because I get stuck and then I can't find my way out of it. The Virtues is a very different process from everything else, in that it's me and Shane in a room together. And that time is so important, not just for what we're doing, but also me. Shane's a genius, and he's also a very wise man, and his wisdom really helps me a lot of the time.
I think that's possibly the best thing I've seen on TV all year. And obviously with Shane, he does work differently. So did you enjoy that way of working? Is there anything in the future that could come off as a result of your working relationship this time?
Shane and I have done 4 things together, so hopefully there'll be a 5th. I'll always work with him whatever he wants me to do, whenever he wants me to do it, if he wants me to do it. If he wants me to butter his toast, I'll be there buttering. That he's, and I think there's a lot of people that feel like that because he's so special. In terms of what's next for him, he's always bubbling with stuff, and then something fits for him, and he goes, okay, and then you go, right, let's go, off we go, And sometimes off we go, and then nothing happens with it. But oftentimes something beautiful starts to develop.
Can we just talk about the origins of this project before we start about the film itself? So where did it all come from?
So there's a guy right over there, this handsome fella named Jack Thorne. He's a writer. We hired him on a movie that we did a couple years ago called Wonder. Jack is friends with Tom Harper, our director, done a bunch of movies together, and Tom was pitching a one-liner of this idea that he and Jack were working on. We fell in love with it, thought there was incredible potential there, and kind of joined forces with those guys. But really it came from them and came from this man's head.
And when was it that Eddie and Felicity became involved? Because obviously they've worked together before, very successfully. So was that early on, or was that something that sort of evolved?
We had a script that we'd been working on for a while, and when we had a script that we felt we were comfortable enough to expose it, our very first move, because we had heard that Eddie and Felicity wanted to work together again, so we sent them both at the exact same time, hoping that they would text each other and say, this is a good one, you should read it, and that's exactly what happened.
And the worlds aligned, and it came together. Fantastic. Fantastic. And obviously you've taken this, I think it premiered in Telluride, and obviously we're in Toronto, so how important is the festival experience for a film like this?
Pretty good.
You have to say that, right?
Listen, we love the film. We're really passionate about the film. I think it's one of the most beautiful films we've ever made. And we've made a lot of movies. And so it's a kind of a thrill to get behind it. But Telluride, we came out of Telluride feeling good. And to see this in this theater, I think is going to be extraordinary.
Yeah, I love this festival. It's a great city, great festival, a lot of energy, it'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Joanne. Thank you for having us. We are so thrilled to be here and to be in this amazing venue showing you our film. It is so exciting and quite terrifying, I have to say. So as I was coming over here, flying from London, and there was some turbulence on the way, I, whilst trying to kind of focus on not thinking we were all going to die, it did make me cast my mind back to the first time I read some stories about these early aeronauts and what it must have been like, 200 years ago, to go up in just a wicker basket and a silk envelope with this gas in it that's lighter than air, and how dangerous and how terrifying that must have been. And that's really what this film was about. It's about an amalgam of some of those early flights. Everything you see in this pretty much actually happened, but just not all at the same time. And when reading about these early flights, I was really struck by their thirst for adventure and the extreme risks they would go to expand our knowledge of the world. And I think that actually that's as true today as it was back then. If you look beyond the headlines, there's all sorts of countless examples of people going to extraordinary lengths to achieve amazing things. And that's really what inspired the movie. It's that we live in this world full of wonder, and in this little small band of atmosphere, this band of air just a few miles thick, and it's precious, and it's amazing what we can do when we can work together. So, speaking of working together, I would like to thank Amazon for their real support. It was an ambitious project at the beginning, and they got behind it from very early on and believed in us and supported us all the way through. So, thank you to them. And I'm just going to introduce a few of the people that we worked together to bring this film to you. Jack Thorne, who is my good friend and collaborator. We work a lot together. He's coming now. Jack Thorne, the writer. Todd Liebman and David Hoagman, producers. And the wonderful Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones. So finally, I'd also just like to thank the rest of the cast and the crew. Filmmaking is such a collaborative medium. Some of the crew are here with me today, have come from London, and it wouldn't be possible with the great effort from so many people. So thank you very, very much for having us. Hope you enjoy the film.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey